Hey, my friends. Hey, soul family. I'm Sheree Burton, and I am thrilled to give you a special little snippet or understanding or trailer of my new podcast, The Soul Rose Show. Now, a lot of you know me from Stand Speak Shine. That was the name of my podcast. And before that, it was Women Seeking Wholeness. The evolution of name changes is very reflective of my own soul evolution. A lot of you know that this is a great time of transition on the earth. A lot of people are going through some major tumult within. And of course, we're seeing that reflected in the culture at large, in the community at large, in the consciousness at large. It's all pressurizing and building up to release and blossom, as I like to think of the rose, blossoming into who and what we were actually created to be as species, as humanity, and as individuals. So I took a podcasting sabbatical after episode 222 about my sacred feminine awakening with Celeste Davis. And it's really interesting. I wasn't going to take a sabbatical, but it's really interesting that 222, that number, it's a sequence of numbers that regularly appears for me. If you're attuned to patterns and numbers and sequences, and if you really start paying attention, sometimes those numbers can reveal themselves to deeper meaning, like they're pointing to you towards something symbolic. I had seen 222 all my life, right? And a lot of things would happen to me on 222 on February 22nd. But it wasn't until I went on a Sacred Mary Magdalene pilgrimage to France and climbed the 22 steps up the Magdalen Tower in Rennes-le-Château. If any of you are familiar with the Da Vinci Code and some of that rich history on the Magdalene there, with the ley lines and everything related to that area of France, that's when I learned that 222 is actually the number, kind of a master number of feminine wholeness. So that was in 2018, and, had some space around that trip. I've had some space to kind of, follow the red thread and what it means for me in that respect. But anyway, back to the 222 episode that I recorded, that last one. I decided, okay, well, it's time for a grand timeout. It's time to regroup. I want to do something more powerful with the podcast. I want to be able to have it be more interactive. I want it to be able to be, I really want to niche in on this whole feminine empowerment thing, not just the feminine in women, but the feminine in men. I have three sons. I have a husband of almost 30 years, three brothers, three little grandsons. There's all these threes with the men in my life. But anyway, I know what our males are up against. I know that this is not only a time of feminine rising for women because we've been silenced for millennia, we've been marginalized, et cetera, disempowered, but it's also a time of the feminine rising for everyone. And so this Soul Rose show, I've just got a clearer path with what I want to bring to you. And it is very reflective of feminine wholeness. And the term soul rose, well, first of all, the rose is a very mystical feminine symbol of the feminine divine. A lot of stuff with Mary Magdalene and stuff that a lot of you have probably noticed. There's a whole thing with the rose path, which I'm going to get into as we dive deep in future episodes. But the actual rose is the whole idea of it blooming. That's one meaning of soul rose, right? The rose, the mystical rose, the sacred feminine, if you will. But the other part of soul rose is that she rose. Like the feminine is rising, and you might say she rose, like it's happened. She is risen, and that is true for all of us. So it just felt like I needed to go back to what is really, really meaningful to me personally, and that is bringing people to their own soul, I guess you could say soul retrieval, soul blossoming, soul voice, and letting whatever wants to rise, allow it to rise and let it be what it needs to be for you. So I'm still going to bring a lot of feminine themed spirituality topics, but I'm also going to bring in a lot of practicality. So a big niche and focus that I have had through my whole career, really, I have an undergraduate degree in psychology, but I didn't go on and get advanced degrees because I really wanted to go more of the holistic route. I went into coaching, but my whole career has focused on mind body science. And it's something that I haven't really brought to the table in this podcast because when I started it 5 years ago, I was really in the middle of a real come apart. I had just turned 50. I was transitioning in multiple arenas. I was actually almost getting a divorce. I was actually, that's a whole other story if you've been following that journey. But my religion of origin, Mormonism, was starting to come apart. I was starting to deconstruct a lot. And so everything in my life was sort of changing. And I was like, I need to talk about this. And for my own sake, I don't care if anyone's listening, I want to bring people in that can help me sort through this. I need a myriad of voices. And so I brought in a real diverse group of men and women, and we just started exploring, and that's been really, really beautiful. But now I'm like, I need to bring the practical in with all this mystical. So it's kind of like the practical priestess or the mystical science or the science and spirituality. So blending those two worlds become really, really important because at the quantum level, all of this is science, even the mystical aspects of it. And so for those of you who are a little bit more in the left brained arena, like I tend to actually be more left brain than right, the analysis, the like, how does this work? Show me how, like, and what can I do? Like, these ideas are great, but I want to know exactly how I can incorporate that in my life. So there will be that aspect to it, which I'm really excited about. And while I was on sabbatical, I haven't been really great, you guys, about like tracking my numbers or stats. I've just been like my son Noah, who's in his 20s, he's been my sound editor for a long time, but he just got his degree, so he's moving on to other things. And when I finally went in and looked at the stats and actually put a team together that can help me produce this a show more powerfully and get it, cleaned up, if you will, a little bit more, they were like, "Do you realize that your podcast is in the top 2% globally?" And that was a shocker. Well, there's that number 2 again, my mystical magic number. But I was like, wow, I was really just doing this to do it. I was just doing it because I love it. I wasn't really tracking statistics, et cetera. But it was really affirming to me because every time I would try to quit in the last 5 years, even like during the sabbatical, something like one of you guys would reach out and be like, I just listened to this episode, or I just found you. I just Googled Mary Magdalene the priestess and I found you. Or, it would be like the universe would be like, no, you can't give up. Like, keep going, keep going. So, in an effort to keep refining the process and to dial in on what every one of you are wanting, including myself, it became really, really apparent that this is a path I need to keep going on. I need to keep podcasting. So, it was really cool to find out that I've had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of downloads from all kinds of countries, unique listeners from all over the world. So that was really, really cool. So, yeah, so we're on this beautiful path of exploration. We're all trying to expand right now. We're feeling pressurized. We're feeling like we're going to blow. And I just want to be a safe space to land for those of you who are feeling that pressure. I want to also let you know too why I'm going back to blue. So you probably saw this pink and red and everything. And the blue rose has always held, well, first of all, it's the most mystical of all roses. And I was part of a mystery school where we really dove into the path of the blue rose, among other things. But blue is symbolic of healing, alchemy, magic, enlightenment through deep devotion. So this really doesn't have to be like belief based when I'm talking about this, or religion, or even a very specific spiritual path, other than, to me, the blue rose is symbolic not only of the divine feminine and all of the mystical aspects that I just named, like healing and enlightenment and devotion, but it's more about the devotion to your own soul voice. It's more about finding your root and what archetypes speak to you. For me, a lot of it is Mary Magdalene and diving into those mysteries, but I've also expanded beyond that. The blue rose, if you think about a blueprint, if you think about your spiritual DNA, that's what I want to bring you back to. So my path is not going to look like yours. You might find elements of your own, like something that speaks to you and elements of what I'm saying or the guests that I bring on. But really, my overarching goal is to bring people back to who they are, so that you can find where you need to root into. And so, again, I don't want to just keep waxing esoteric or mystical with my messaging. I want to make sure that I'm bringing it into the physical realm, the tangible, capturing things, capturing ideas you have, capturing messages and inspiration that are flowing through you and being able to land it as you're listening. Because I guarantee you, some of these guests that I'm bringing on, especially these next two that I have in the works on 222 when we actually launch, it's like you're gonna hear things that we're not saying. I don't know if you've experienced that phenomenon, but you're like, "Oh, wow," and you take notes while you're listening, and then you go back and they didn't actually say that, but it's something that your spirit or God or the universe or angels, however you define, how you receive inspiration and answers and downloads, is gonna come through. So again, we're not just going into the mystical realms anymore and the esoteric, although we will touch on that and we will continue to touch on the expanding consciousness and how the feminine is rising and how we can support you and ground you into that. But there's also a lot of research based science that I'm bringing in, database, practical tips, protocols, things like that, and it's going to help you up level your mindset, your heart set, your mental health, your emotional health, and your whole body healing alongside the spirituality aspect. Because as you know, they're all married to each other. You can't influence one aspect of your soul without influencing another, or your body, and vice versa. So, all things spirituality, all things consciousness, especially feminine consciousness, soul evolution, awakening, things of that nature, I'll continue to do, but we're going to bring it in also to the practicality because I'm utterly obsessed with that. So it's kind of like body meets soul, spiritual meets physical, divine meets human. So where I play is the middle path, and where I get triggered is where people want you to choose a camp. Well, want this ideology over here, or this religious belief over here, or this spiritual community over here, and they just, adhere or attach to one way or one line of thinking when this is such a massive universe with a massive amount of diversity. And so opening that up is something that was important to me as I was starting this podcast, and it's going to continue to be important to me. But my whole focus and mission will always be about empowering women to heal, to reclaim their sovereignty, and to radiate their sacred beauty. Whatever that radiance is for you, that's my mission. The Soul Row Show is where ancient, kind of like the ancient wisdom teachings meet the modern path of soul evolution. So yeah, so I'm going to help you rise to the authenticity of who you really are. We've all had so much programming, so much societal conditioning, and the new Soul Row Show is really about embodying your soul's purpose during this pivotal time of human history or her story. This is your time to let your soul rise. Things are shifting rapidly. And so I believe in having anchors when you have a rapidly changing environment, both within you and outside of you, you need anchors. And I've heard from many of you throughout the years of how this has been an anchor for you, to kind of the safe space to land and ground and align your inner and outer selves. So you, once you go through this transition or these initiations or these dark nights of the soul, which can be extremely painful, the reason you're going through it now is because you're part of when there is more of a mass awakening, or like you could just say, when things start to unravel really, really quickly and people are going to be very disoriented, they're not going to know where to attach or what to believe or what to think or feel. And a lot of you have been going through that. I know I have been going through that. And so we are here as vessels, as emissaries, as midwives of the soul, so that when things start to unravel on a more global mass scale, people are going to need you. People are going to need your wisdom, how you ground the divine ground of your own being, and how you can be a way shower, part of the solution, because we are all part of this huge, massive evolutionary shift right now. It's why we're on the earth. Um, so yeah, one thing I did notice too, throughout the years is I was attracting a lot of people, men and women, who were in that dark night and they were spiraling, they were spinning, they didn't know what to think, feel, do, or be, or whatever. And they were just needing sort of this voice of reason, or this like someone holding a flashlight for them as they were in that really, really dark place. I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to feel like you're spinning. That my greatest metaphor or analogy or whatever that I have for that, for me personally, it was like I was on this mothership for so many years, for almost 50 years of my life. I was on this mothership and I was tethered to it like an astronaut. And all of a sudden I untethered. And when that arrives for you, because it's not something you even choose. I could say that I physically untethered myself, but that's not exactly what happened. There were greater forces at play, including my higher self and the God of my understanding. And that's still a work in progress to know like exactly how that works. Some people call this the dark feminine force, but whatever it was, it literally facilitated an untethering naturally from the mothership, and I went spinning and spinning and hurling into space. That's the level of disorientation and disillusionment and confusion that initially ensued. And by all indicators, by everyone else around me were saying, "Oh, well, because you made the wrong choice or this or that. Like, you're not part of the mothership anymore. What's going on? That's why you're so messed up." And it was teachers that came in at very specific times. Some of them were podcasters who I never talked to personally. Some of them had trainings or things on YouTube. Some of them I sought out as mentors. And let me just tell you, that piece was so pivotal in grounding me back into finding me that I am the mothership. That we're all our own motherships. So practical pointers will be coming your way. The silencing of feminine in females, males, what it's done to our bodies. How can we reclaim that? How can we reclaim our voices, our health, our power, our mental faculties, our clarity, how we can walk our own spiritual path with confidence and not having to go into second guessing or doubt. So, yeah, our first 2 episodes that will launch us off on the Soul Rose show are 2 very strong feminine power themed episodes. They will both be released within a week of each other. Episode 223 is where we will start with the Soul Rose show. And being that we left off at 222 with my Sacred Feminine Awakening episode. And if you haven't listened to that, that's a really good precursor to what's coming down the track. But anyway, we will go into this spiritual empowerment arena like never before and highly well just the whole idea of self-actualization if you're familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There's that, but there's also this level, also the pinnacle piece of self-transcendence, which is kind of the goal I'm moving into with Soul Rose, is that, less flowery and more to the point of how we can transcend this world, this third dimension, and come into a peaceable place of power. You could call it the fifth dimension, you could call it many things, but because the earth and time is speeding up, what would have taken us, multiple years in the past can take us days or weeks right now just because everything is speeding up. So it's easy for that disorientation to speed up as well if you don't have a grounded place to emote, feel, and act from. And that place is you, but it also helps to have your environment staged to a degree that you're also drawing upon resources of wise teachers and people who have been through it. And those are the kind of people that I'm bringing on the show. So, yeah, I mean, just like a rose, just like a rose like opens its petals and closes, and there's so many metaphors that we could go into with the rose, but you'll go through stages where you will feel like you're withering and dying. And a lot of you have been on my journey of the death and rebirth process, and it's something I talked extensively about with a myriad of experts in the last 5 years. We'll continue to go through those phases with you because it's not like a one and done. It's not like you go through a death process and a rebirth process once in your life. There's multiple ways and invitations that the universe will send you to keep going through that until you are deconditioned, until you are free. And I guess I could say that's to me what the rose path is all about is liberation, emancipation from outer structures, from outer authorities, from even a lot of beliefs that were handed to you that don't resonate anymore because they're just outmoded. They don't land in your being in the same way they may have done like 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. So head over to my private Facebook group if you haven't already and ask to join. It used to be called Stand Speak Shine Community. It's called Soul Rose Community now. And every month, I believe it's the second Monday of every month, I will be on live to do a share. Sometimes it will be kind of a channeling type of thing or a deep teaching, but it's kind of just a mini class, a monthly mini class. Eventually, when we get our more engagement happening, I'll open it up for Q&A. We'll do some kind of hot seat coaching type of thing. But I'm really, really excited about that community expanding and having more interactivity. I've also got something really, really cool in the works that's interactive that I don't see any other podcaster doing that I can't talk about right now, but I will be talking about it after the 22nd. So watch for that. And that's about all. I guess I just want to wrap this up and thank you so much. Those of you who faithfully listen, who have I don't know all of you personally, obviously, but I feel you. I feel the hunger. I feel like when I'm recording sometimes, whether I'm doing a solo episode or I'm directing questions to the guests, I can feel that it's what some of you have been waiting for. So thank you. Thank you for your support energetically, physically. If you love this podcast, I would say please share a review on iTunes. We have really high reviews. And I want more people to find this because I know there are so many people, men and women, girls and boys, teenagers, they need this right now. They need an affirmation and a validation of what they're going through. And I'm just excited to guide us all along the next level of our shared journey of soul evolution and expansion. So, subscribe to the Soul Rose Show on your favorite podcast platforms. And again, come in and ask to join our private Facebook community, Soul Rose Show, as well as follow me on Instagram at cherie.burton. Thanks so much, everybody.